3rd, 2022. And it's not the drugs, I swear. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We're missing Commissioner Quinney, but he said he was going to be late, so he will be here. So first on the agenda, looks like we have the minutes. Any questions or comments on the minutes?
Julie, you need to hide like an Easter egg in one of the minutes to see who finds it, so you know if we're really reading them.
I'm sure there's something there.
I found something.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
I,
Commissioner Wynn.
I'm not sure how nitpicky we are in this body, but I mean, maybe I'm about to find out. On page 5, under the cottage at Parker Place development, Mr. Pearson's name is spelled 2 different ways.
Good catch. That was the Easter egg.
Yeah, I can catch that.
Good catch.
If it says Pearson, it's Pearson. Okay, any others?
I just want to say that was incredible. That was a long read and a long night and let out of the word. So thank you.
Anybody want to have any comment on that? Or do you want to just save your comments for the meeting? Okay. I kind of thought so, but I figured I'd give everybody a fair shot.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the first public hearing is the West Jordan Medical Partners at 5459 West, 7800 South, preliminary site plan, PC zone, Fort Street Partners. And Ray, I guess you got this one.
So this is pretty straightforward request.
He's got 2 of them now.
Turn
I have a soft voice to begin with, so now I got 2.
Oh,
No, I'm all good. All right, let's use this one. So this property is located at 5459 West, 7800 South. This one's really quite a straightforward proposal. I don't see many that come through here where I say this is great and it works really well at this location. But this is one of those. It's right. It's just north of the park side. Apartments. There's another medical office. It's just off to the left hand or the west of it, and the building's attractive. I think the landscape. They've got plenty of parking. The landscaping will look good. The access is off of the I think it's Ranches Loop Road. We just really don't have any issues with it.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thanks, Ray. Oh,
yeah.
Is UDOT prohibiting access to 7800 South there, or is the developer just not interested in it?
7800 South is a limited access arterial street, and so the preference is to come in off of the south, so that there aren't too many accesses along 7800.
Yeah, thank you.
okay. Item number 4. The Ortega property, 1875 West, 7800 South. Future land use map amendment for 0.39 acres from parks and open lands to professional office and rezone from R1 to 8A, single family residential 8,000 square foot lot minimum, zone to PO professional office zone. Efrain Ortega is the applicant and looks like Larry.
Yeah, and so this is a single family home. It's been there probably 50, 60 years. It fronts on 7800 South, probably built by, well, I know it was built when 7800 South was a 2-lane road going out and ended at 2700 West. The nature of 7800 South has changed dramatically. It's on the parks and open lands. and the general plan is parks and open lands. I think at one time, there used to be houses all along the front of 7800 South, all the way to the corner of 2200 West. The city bought all of them, I think, with the exception of these three. And I believe maybe the intent was, well, someday the city will buy it and turn it into a park, part of the park. It really is a terrible place to have part of the park because, I don't think there's ever any intent to purchase Westview Apartments here. The taking there for a park would be astronomical. And so the Ortegas purchased this. They want to convert it into a coffee shop, which is a commercial use. Of course, in a professional office zone that is allowed. This property directly to the east is an insurance office. This is it used to be a mortuary, now it's a church. And then across the street directly are actually two insurance offices. So the use is compatible. It's in a really busy area, but we'll get into that when we get to the site plan. Right now, they're just asking for a land use map amendment, as you can see over on this screen, to professional office. I took this to the land use subcommittee last, and that's a 3-person committee composed of, well, 3 council people. They don't have any issue with changing this to professional office, along with probably this property to the east, which already is a commercial use. My suggestion would be, this is already zoned professional office, this property, this one isn't, and this one isn't. My suggestion is an alternative motion, if the planning commission wanted to consider it, would be to change the land use map on all 3 of these properties to professional office. However, I wouldn't rezone this farthest west one because that could lead to tax implementation, and they're not aware of the change in zoning, so it could increase their property tax potentially. But it wouldn't, the land use map does not affect the property tax, whatever, I can't think of the word now, but it doesn't affect that property tax that is assessed on the property, where the zoning does. And so this is a rough site plan of what they want to do. You can see there's parking in the back. They'll probably have to work on some radiuses for emergency vehicles and things. But we're not talking about the site plan. We're talking about the land use and the zoning this evening. So do you have any questions for me at this point?
I had a question. Where is this in relation to that little museum?
So if you look at the screen, the museum would be across the lawn, across the driveway to the park. So it's probably
Further west, or
about
the
600,
museum is
700,
further
yeah,
west. Okay.
yeah, 600-700 feet to the west. Yeah.
Any other questions? I'd actually like to see us tonight make that alternative motion and just create that all.
Yeah, I think that alternative motion makes sense to me.
It doesn't, instead of piecing it, let's just do it. Because it does make sense. Okay. No other comments? Okay, and number 5, text amendment, the drought management plan update, amending the 2009 West Jordan City Code, Title 9, Chapter 6, Section 1 through 8, with utilities drought management. And Larry, it looks like you got this one too.
Greg Davenport's here. When I think of drought, I think of Greg. And so we'll let him talk about it. He's actually utilities. What's your utility manager for the city? And so I wouldn't do it justice. So if you have any questions, I'd ask him of Greg. So.
Any questions?
Oh, come on.
Come up and present at the podium. Let us know what's going on.
Right, I know, right? Do you want to get a quick update?
Yeah.
Yes, I was gonna do it anyway in part of my presentation, but let me give you a quick update. Last year caught a lot of people off guard in the valley as far as drought and drought management. Typically in Salt Lake Valley, we haven't had to worry about droughts. We have such great reservoir facilities that it hasn't really affected our valley. There are other places in Utah that it really affects, southern Utah. I'm hearing about Davis. Last year was the first year you started to see that the prolonged drought start to take effect in Salt Lake Valley. So you started to see Jordanelle and Deer Creek go down to levels you probably haven't seen before. Last year, our water provider, we buy most of our water from Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, didn't have any drought restrictions. Instead, they wanted all the communities to go and plan, make changes to their ordinances, and prepare for this year, which they are going to have restrictions. So this year, I could explain it later in my presentation, but they're going to ask that all communities try and save up to 10% of their water, between 5 and 10%. So what for West Jordan, we typically on a non-drought year, we would use about 24,000 acre feet of water. So what they're going to ask is for our city to save somewhere around 2,400 acre feet of water. Now, the good news for West Jordan is last year, because of the governor's efforts, our city did really well. And so we actually saved more water than that. So instead of the 10%, West Jordan residents actually saved 12% in our city, which we can all be really proud of. We don't publish those things. Maybe we should do that more, but our residents did really, really well handling the drought last year. So I hope that they do the same this year. We'll just have to see. A lot of times, how much water we save is really dependent upon the outside watering that people do. And sometimes that's dependent on the weather. So if you remember last year, it was really hot at the beginning, and then we had rainstorms at the end, which really helped us. If you were worried about your lawn, you didn't have to, because once a week you get this downpour. I don't know what's going to happen this summer, so we'll just have to see. But when we talk with you and we go over this, what we're trying to do is put some framework in place so that city council can start to address the residents and say, this is not just something we'd like to encourage you to do. This is something that is in our code and that you need to follow. So any other questions? I don't want to go too in depth in that. You don't have to talk with me about the code changes and stuff like that. You can wait to the meeting, but do you have any other questions about drought not related to this exactly?
Yeah. Where does Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District get its water from?
They have 3 different sources. So the first source they get it from is from Jordanelle and from Deer Creek. And then the second source is through Strawberry. And so they have specific shares in the Jordanelle system. And then they have some from the Central Utah Water Project, which is the Strawberry area. And then the last thing they have is they have some really great wells on the east side, right at the base of the Wasatch Mountains. So they can take up to 20,000 acre feet just from those wells, which is, in a normal year, they'll provide to Salt Lake Valley about 110,000 acre feet. West Jordan is a big user of that. We take 24 of the 110, but they provide about 110,000 acre feet. And that's to about everybody on the west side of the valley. And it also includes Draper. So about everybody on the west side and Draper gets water from Jordan Valley Water. If you're on the east side, you probably get it from Metropolitan or from Salt Lake City.
Aren't we the largest customer of theirs?
We are the largest customer of Jordan Valley Water, with a close second to West Valley City, and it's Granger Hunter. So, any other questions? Okay, great.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our pre-meeting. We'll take a 15-minute recess.
That's good.
Okay, it's time. We'll go ahead and convene the West Jordan Planning Commission meeting, May 3rd, 2022. And all 6 commissioners are present. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from last meeting with the correction that was previously noted by Commissioner Wynn. Any other comments?
I'll go ahead and approve. Make a motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it is approved. 6-0. Okay, next on the agenda is a business item. Bowman's Arrow, 6170 West, 7800 South. Future land use map amendment for 86.14 acres from low density residential to medium density, and medium density residential, high density residential, community, commercial, future park, and parks and open land to medium density residential, high density residential, very high density residential, and parks and open land. We'll just go ahead and start this on discussion. Anybody want to make any comments to start out with, or Commissioner Quinney?
I'll go. Okay, so I've thought about this a lot over the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate the project that we have before us. However, in the now 7+ years I've been doing this, I've been an ardent defender of keeping our arteries protected for commercial. I don't have a problem with the high density, the very high density. I know that a lot of the residents are probably cringing a little bit at hearing me say that, but this is an area where it's needed. However, I can't get on board with anything that doesn't have any commercial in that area. I know Ben spoke about cannibalizing the little pockets of commercial. We've got to be able to bring some of the commercial stuff over to the other side of Mountain View so that people aren't having to go so far out of the way, crossing all the traffic. They need to be able to do that. I think that if we could get a new project or an updated plan that had some commercial, some retail, so we can get some restaurants there, whatever the case may be, I can be on board with this. As it's currently presented, I'm not in favor.
Anybody else? Commissioner Sheldon?
I would have to echo those sentiments. I feel like the biggest problem with this future land use map is the lack of any commercial. So maybe go back to the drawing board on that and see what we can come up with. But I feel like commercial is missing, and it was brought up numerous times in the meeting how people are driving from West Jordan to South Jordan to visit restaurants and to visit other commercial establishments that are outside of our city, and it's just missing. And other than that, the very high density residential it's hard pill to swallow, but that is an area where it probably, at least some, even though there's already a heavy burden being borne by the residents in that area of very high density residential, it's probably an area that could bear additional because of the transportation arteries that exist in that area.
Commissioner Wynn?
I did some homework in the past 2 weeks and did what I could to match up this proposal with the specific findings that we are supposed to find with each proposal we entertain. And I can go into some detail if you want me to, but I'll just say this much for now. In my judgment, this proposal does not meet finding A, and it does not meet finding C, and does not meet finding D. Based on that, I'm against the Bowman Zero proposal.
Thank you. And I kind of want to echo what's been said up here, and I would like to see even maybe a little bit more of a plan, or at least a rough plan for some of the infrastructure. I know everybody complains about the traffic and everything else, and oh my heck, that'll do nothing but add traffic to that whole area. So, and that's just one tiny little item. So, that's my 2 cents.
Could I speak to the traffic?
Sure.
I feel like this is a future land use map. It's not a proposed development, and that in the future the roads will be upgraded to handle the traffic. My concern has not really been the traffic, but I could be misguided. So if anyone wants to rebut that.
Well, with the proposed amendment change, that could increase the traffic, and that's kind of my point. Commercial is going to bring extra traffic. There's no traffic's going to incur no matter what. Well, I think we're all agree with that, but we can manage, I think, a modest increase instead of a large increase, and that's kind of my point.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allen.
I would really like to hear from Commissioner Wynn a little bit more on the detail on his points. I came away with the same findings on those, and I think I'd stop short of saying I don't think it could be supported, and more of I really appreciate what the applicant brought forward, and that is the notion that we need to look at our future land use on that entire side of Mountain View in order to better understand what that infrastructure needs to be. And we're talking commercial, transportation, and utilities. And that was really what was brought forward on this is we need to show something on the land use map that's going to bring UTA in. It's going to bring in, whoever it is, so that they're aware, so that the city is aware and can plan out what that storm drain, sewer, water, all of that's going to be. So I really appreciate that and agree with it. I'm not entirely ruling out that what they've suggested wouldn't work. I would like to see some commercial there. But rolling back, I'd like to really zoom out and say, okay, well, where are the commercial districts west of Mountain View? Where are some of these things? So I agree. I'm against it at this point. I'm not entirely saying that this couldn't work in the overall scheme when we see how all of it plays out. Does that make sense?
Commissioner Shelton.
I would just like to agree that I feel like this piece of ground and probably many around it do need to be addressed, that we can't just leave it as it is. The future land use map in this area is completely outmoded and outdated. And it does need to be brought up to date. And thank you.
Commissioner Hatch.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll have to echo my fellow commissioners, and I agree on the findings of fact. I couldn't wrap my head around B or D, so adding C in there is farther than I got. And I agree, we do have infill problems, and we do need to update our land use map. I don't think this is the time to do it. I agree with more commercial. We need to understand transportation. We need to understand how all of this fits together. So based on that, I would disagree as well.
Does anybody want to make a motion against this then?
Commissioner Wynn, you've done the most homework on this. I'll let you take it.
Would you like to make the motion, Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, I move that the Bowman Zero proposal not be forwarded to the city council with a negative recommendation from the planning commission.
Based on which findings?
Based on findings A, C, and D.
That it does not meet finding the.
Does not meet those findings, correct.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it carries 6-0. Thank you. Okay, item number 3, the West Jordan Medical Partners, 5459 West, 7800 South, preliminary site plan, PC zone, Fort Street Partners. James Balderson is the applicant. Please come up and make sure the mic's on. There's a
Oh,
button. Yeah, there you go. Oh,
turn it off. Okay, there we go.
thank you. And if you just state your name.
I'm Heather Llewellyn, representing Fort Street Partners. So thank you for letting us come and speak with you tonight, and for the feedback we've received so far on our project. So we're proposing a one-story medical office building. Here you mentioned on 7800 South. It's about 18,000 square feet, just over 18,000 square feet. Excuse me. Currently, we have a lease signed with Families First Pediatrics and Dentistry. We also signed a lease with a physical therapy group, and then we're actively marketing. We've got about 1,100 square feet left that we're marketing to other medical groups. If we want to talk about the layout of the site, so the building itself, you can see kind of backs up onto 7800 South with the parking on the, I'm horrible with directions, on the south and west side of the property. The building entrance itself is facing the parking, so on the south side. So although the back side of the building is on 78 South, it's still very nice design on the back side. So the entire building, there's no like bad side of the building to say. The building height is like 18 feet tall at our tallest parapet wall. So there's some elevations for you. You can see all around the building is designed to look nice from any direction. Some of the building materials we're proposing are ephes, brick, aluminum siding, some of which you can see in the brown is to mimic wood look, and then lots of glass throughout to bring lots of daylight into the building. Let's see. The site layout, sorry, I should have started there. We are looking at, we've got cross access between the existing property to the west of us, that orthodontics building, I think it's orthodontics, yeah, to the west. And then whatever property would be developed to the east of us. So we've got nice cross access throughout that commercial development there. The main access to our site is from Ranches Loop Road. And then again, the cross access you would be able to get around that whole commercial development. As far as we are asking for approval on the conditional use permit, as far as that goes, we do feel like we are meeting those conditions. Some of the things that conditional use permit requires is that you're not creating like a detriment to the health and safety of the community. We feel that this is doing the exact opposite. With the rapid growth of West Jordan over the past few years, as you guys were just discussing, we feel that bringing more medical services to the community actually enhances the health and safety of the community. So we feel like this is a great need that we're happy to provide for the community. We do feel like this use is in line with the purpose of the general plan. It does meet the design criteria, excuse me, as outlined in the general plan, and it is compatible with surrounding uses. As I mentioned, the orthodontics office next door. So there's other commercial properties right there, some restaurants and retail right in that development. And then we're looking for approval on just the general site plan. So we've been working back and forth with the planners. We've done 2 rounds of comments and feel like we've been able to address their questions and concerns and comments fairly easily. We haven't had any major concerns or hiccups, so we feel like we'll be able to get through those. We sent in our maybe final, we'll see, round of comments today. There were just a couple to address. So we think we've been able to work through all of those pretty easily, and we'll be able to to address anything else that they might have for us. One of the requirements for the site plan was to promote a functional relationship between other structures, which we feel like we're doing again with the cross access between the different properties, just keeping this a nice cohesive development throughout. I'm so sorry. And then another thing is that the architectural character is in harmony. And based on kind of some of the renderings you saw, we feel like this will be a great addition to that commercial area there, fronting right on 7800 South. So that's kind of what I've got. I don't know if you have any other questions or anything more specific.
Anybody got any questions for the applicant?
I do. My question is, was there any discussion about future expansion of 7800 South and the impact it would have on your development?
It hasn't come up in our discussions with the planning department, no.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll call you up if we have any more questions. Ray?
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. Mr. Chairman, what you're looking at is two actions tonight. One is for a preliminary site plan, and then the second is for a conditional use permit for medical services. The applicant's done really a job of just explaining what the proposal is about. This is going to be a medical office building in a planned community zone. It's located on 7800 South, a major arterial street. There's really good cross access between the existing office building and then the future use of the property to the east. We feel that it fits right in with the other buildings that are that are in the area in terms of the height. We really see this just we've got plenty of parking. We just see this as a great addition to the area. I'm not 100% sure on the widening of 7800 South. Maybe Nate can answer.
The road's already built for its future needs, so the road's fine.
So with that, our recommendation is for approval, just subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for staff? Okay, we'll open this up for public hearing. If you'd like to speak on this item, please step forward. You'll be given 3 minutes. Please just state your name. Or if you're online, please raise your hand. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the podium for discussion with the commissioners.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
Is that okay?
absolutely.
This one was so nicely done and so well prepared. I feel like we can move forward. I move that the Planning Commission approve the preliminary site plan for medical services for the West Jordan Medical Partners Office located at 5459 West, 7800 South in a PC zone subject to the requirements of site plan approvals listed on page 2 of the staff report.
Commissioner Quinney,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 6-0. You want to make the next?
I will do so. I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for medical services for the West Jordan Medical Partners Office located at 5459 West, 7800 South in a PC zone, subject to the conditional use permit approval conditions listed on page 2 of the staff report.
Commissioner Quinney,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 6-0. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, next, item 4, the Ortega property at 1875 West, 7800 South, future land use map amendment for 0.39 acres from parks and open lands to professional office and rezone from R1-8A, excuse me, single family residential, 8,000 square foot lot minimum zone to PO, professional office zone Ephraim Ortega is the applicant. And if you'd like to speak now.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Efraín Ortega, soy el representante de mi familia por ahora.
Good evening. My name is Efrain Ortega. I'm the representative of my family.
Yeah, can you kind of split the microphone so we can hear both of you? I appreciate the bilingual, but we kind of need both languages if you don't mind.
He said, good evening. My name is Efrain Ortega, and I'm representing my family on this matter.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Espero me disculpen por no poder hablar el inglés y que ustedes puedan entenderme.
He's apologizing for not speaking English, and he hopes that you guys understand and are able to understand the needs of his permit.
Bueno, el motivo de mi solicitud para cambio de estatus de la casa familiar es específicamente por la zona. La zona donde me encuentro no es una zona completamente residencial, es más comercial que residencial.
He's asking for the zoning to be changed from the use that is right now. The zoning for the property is residential zoning, but the area that the place is at is more a commercial type of place. So he's asking the planning commission to change that to a professional office or some type of a commercial zoning that his property, he'll be able to use his property more in the area that he's at.
Okay.
Específicamente esa es mi solicitud. No se puede vivir en un área donde el ruido y las molestias de alrededor pues perturban la tranquilidad familiar.
He's really asking for that because in reality, he cannot use his house for residential property when there's so much noise and stuff going around the property. So you really can't live on that property. So he's asking the zoning to be rezoned to a commercial property so he can use it effectively. ¿Cuál es el uso que le vas a dar a la propiedad? Okay.
El uso que le voy a dar a la propiedad va a ser de pequeñas oficinas que a futuro puedan convertirse en útil para la zona. Realmente eso hace falta en el sector.
He would like to use the property in the future to make it like little offices to be used professionally. He feels that is the use that he will get the most use of that property, using it as offices. Small offices in the area, and which is, I believe, the area that he's at, that's what most of it is. They have like little offices and houses and then the park. So he feels that is the perfect use for his property at this time.
El espacio que poseo es apropiado. La casa no se va a modificar internamente. Van a haber pequeñas modificaciones para adaptarlas a las oficinas solamente.
He's not planning on doing a lot of reconstruction and remodeling of the house. Outside, he's planning on leaving it like it is, but inside there will be some remodels so he can have access to the small offices or business that he would like to rent in that property.
Bueno, específicamente eso era lo que quería explicar. Si hay alguna pregunta, por favor.
We'll be open to questions now. So if you guys have any, that's basically what he wanted to explain.
Any questions for the applicant?
Would the home remain a residence while it is also occupying, or while there's also a business?
Usted va a estar viviendo la propiedad al mismo tiempo que la está haciendo comercialmente, o solamente es comercial. No va a haber nadie viviendo en la propiedad como residencial. Usted va a estar viviendo en la propiedad.
No, hay un espacio. La casa tiene un basement que está acondicionado, pero para la renta. Okay. Lo estoy acondicionando para la renta, no para permanecer en ella familiarmente. Y la parte de arriba la quiero acondicionar como oficinas.
¿Y para qué usar lo de abajo si no?
Lo de abajo lo quiero utilizar para renta,
Ajá.
pero no permanente.
Va a estar gente entrando y saliendo
Es
todo el
entrando
tiempo.
y saliendo todo, o sea, como vamos a decir, como un pequeño hotel, una pequeña posada, se puede decir.
Okay. So he would like to use the top of there's a basement on the home that he would like to have access to, maybe have people coming and going, like renting that place, like maybe a little hotel.
Yeah,
And then the top of it will be, for offices, professional use.
yeah.
So
What you're presenting today would be just for office only, so
lo que
that
estás presentando
would not
hoy es
be
solamente
permitted.
para oficina. O sea,
Eso era una idea,
lo de-
eso era una idea futura.
Okay.
No tiene nada que ver con que sea permanente la idea. O sea,
Okay.
si no es aprobado, sencillamente acondiciono todo para oficina.
Okay. He's not presenting that today. That's kind of like a future use. If that's not approved or anything, he doesn't have a problem with that. He will use the whole property as a professional offices.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Larry?
So we want to thank Lori for helping out and Brian for allowing one of his employees to, Glory's an employee of the city and really a great asset, as you can see. So, so Mr. Ortega's property is on 7800 South, as they said. It's right to the rear of it is the Westview Apartments. To the west is Veterans Memorial Park. And there's actually three houses or three structures that were built as houses on the south side here. There used to be houses go all along up to 2200 West. Several of them were removed. In fact, all of them were removed to expand the park a couple of decades ago, with the exception of the one residence that is used for the West Jordan Historical Museum. And so the properties surrounding it, these two properties to the north are both insurance offices, as is the one directly east to the Ortega property. And so it sounds like he's wants to use it as some type of commercial use, but whatever uses are on the use table in the PO zone are what he'll be allowed to do. There is a tiny or a small house right directly west of this, which is occupied right now and is not part of the concept. There's a church here, and then, of course, Zion's Bank a little farther to the east. And so the proposal is the current land use map shows these three parcels I just described, the three homes, as part of the parks and open land. Probably at one time the intent was to, and Brian, you may be able to address this, but to purchase these and make it part of the park. I don't think it's a very good use for the park right there without taking out all of this entire corner. And so I think that it is shown that these type of small offices work in this area of 7800 South. So Mr. Ortega's proposal is to change the land use map and the zoning on his property to professional office. This property to the east, now the green might be confusing, it already is zoned professional office. It's just on the land use map as parks and open land, as is this property is zoned R18, and it is on the land use map as parks and open land. An alternate proposal I put in the in the staff report that does not affect Mr. Ortega's application at all to the Planning Commission would be to change the land use map on all three of these properties to professional office. Rezone Mr. Ortega's property to professional office. Like I said, this one already is, but don't rezone this other resident this time without I think they can make application if they want to do that. I don't want to zone their property to a commercial use and have a higher assessment from the county without their knowledge. So at least if we're going to tax them higher, they should at least know about it. And so, but changing the land use map will not affect their tax value at all. It's based on zoning. This is just a rough concept of what Mr. Ortega was describing. I think at this time he was, it sounds like he's kind of open to what he wants to do with his property. And so, but this time this proposal was a coffee shop. That may not be the best and highest and best use. He'll have to figure that out based on the land use table. With that, staff recommends that the planning commission forward a positive recommendation to the city council. I would favor that you do the alternative motion, but that is up to the planning commission on what motion you want to forward to the planning commission or to the city council. It meets all of the criteria of the ordinance, by the way. So thank you.
Okay, any questions for staff? Commissioner Sheldon?
If there's no questions or further comments, I'm ready to.
We
need a public
hearing.
Excuse me.
Seeing it's usually me that does that. All right, we'll go ahead and open this up to a public hearing. If you'd like to speak on this item, please step up to the lectern and just state your name. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak on this item. If you are listening or would like to speak on Zoom, just raise your hand. Come on, Paul, you can come up and talk. Okay, we will go ahead and close that public hearing and bring it back up to the commissioners for comment and or motions. Now you can.
So, first of all, before I make a motion, I'd like to ask the fellow commissioners, are you okay with the alternate motion recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map on 0.81 acres of property located at 1897 West, 7800 South, 1875 West, 7800 South, and 1871 West, 7800 South, from parks and open land to professional office.
Commissioner Allen?
Segundo.
Means second. I even got that. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, carries 6-0. Thank you. Now I have one quick question with that.
Still one more motion.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because it has to be zoned. Okay. Sure.
Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone 0.39 acres of property located at 1875 West, 7800 South from R1 8A, single family residential, 8,000 square foot lot minimum zone to PO, professional office zone.
Commissioner Allen?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, carries 6-0. Thank you. Now, item number 5, text amendment, drought management plan update, amending the 2009 West Jordan City Code, Title 9, Chapter 6, Section 1 through 8, Utilities Drought Management. And Greg will be speaking for us.
Yep. Let me introduce myself. My name is Greg Davenport. I'm the utility manager for the city of West Jordan. And I'm going to present to you some changes that we're going to propose in city code for your review. we're really hoping today with these changes is to update our current code. The current code was, let me go to this slide. Current code, Title 9-6 was originally adopted in 2001. I think your packet says September 30th, 2022, and we haven't quite reached that date yet. So the correct date is actually in 2001 when we first put this in, and it was our first attempt at trying something like this. And then we actually adopted a drought management plan in 2003. That doesn't have to go through this body, but we will show it to City Council when we get there. In preparation for doing this, Brian Clegg and myself went to City Council in a work session, and we asked their feedback on the current code and some of the changes that we were proposing in the new plan. And they gave us concerns back. Just so you know, some of their concerns were how this would affect business, especially inside watering. So let's say you were a car wash, or let's say you were a hotel, with people not be able to wash their clothes in the hotel if we pass something like this in a very serious drought. So they had serious concerns with inside watering restrictions. They also had concerns with how we were enforcing this. So in the original code they adopted, we would notify you have a problem, you have this much time to comply. If you didn't comply, then you could get a $100 fine per day, and then you could get a $200 fine per day if you still didn't comply. And then for the fourth notice, we would just cut off your service. And that could all happen in according to the code in less than a month, that we would turn off your service. And they just didn't see how that was very fair for a resident, especially if you were on vacation or if there were other extenuating circumstances that were preventing you from meeting the water restrictions. And so we went and looked at it, and they suggested that we follow what is already in the code for enforcement. So that's what we did. So if you look at this, the changes that we suggested, those are some of the big things that happened. To go over, I thought you might be interested in what might change in the drought management plan. One of the first things that we're changing is we used to have more stages than this, but we're changing it to just these four. These better match what Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District is going to propose and is going to adopt. And because they provide 95% of our water, we pretty much have to go along with what they propose and adopt. In stage one, they ask us to voluntarily conserve up to 5%. So we don't really make any of the residents do anything. We just ask them nicely. In the stage two, in severe conditions, we encourage them a little more strongly, and we hope for 10%. And again, I should have mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these are just for outdoor watering. We've pretty much removed the indoor watering portions. We really don't save very much from doing the water inside. The majority of the water we save is in the outside. In stage 3, now there are some that are encouraged, but now there's some mandatory. So if we ever got to a extreme condition in stage 3, that's where those penalties we talked about would start to apply to certain people. And then in stage 4, they're mandatory for everyone. So whether you're a business or whether you're a resident, everyone has to comply so that we can save up to 30% or more. To give you an idea of that, and again, I could do this quickly, but I thought you might be interested. On a regular month in the winter when we don't water, the city of West Jordan uses about 1,000 acre feet a month. In the summer, or in the months where we water outdoor, we use about 3,000. So the difference between a month when we don't water outside and a month when we do is about 2,000 acre feet. Just one of those months is 5% reduction. 2 of those months is 10% reduction. When we start to get to 3 and we're getting 60, that's 6,000, then we're talking about that 30% or more. And so that is really where we save the most of the water in this plan, is in the outdoor watering and encouraging people to just water less. Again, the other thing that really changed in this is we're going to follow exactly Title 16 of the West Jordan Code for enforcement, which I think will provide an avenue for people. If they do have a extenuating circumstance, they can come and talk with our code enforcement people and get it worked out before they have to pay a monetary fine or they get their water turned off. Do you guys have any questions for me? Any questions about the changes in the code that were presented in the packet?
I have a question.
Commissioner Wynn?
Who gets to determine when there is a drought and when it's mild, moderate, extreme, or deadly?
That is such a great question. I'm glad that you asked that. Again, because 95% of water comes from Jordan Valley, the Jordan Valley Board actually votes on this. So in April, they meet with all of the people they supply water with, and they explain the outlook. In April-ish, they pretty much know how much water they're going to have in the reservoirs and in the streams. This year was a little bit different. We had so much water that it stayed flat. So they undercounted, but so we're doing a little bit better this year than they thought. And then in May, they present it to their board. So this month, they're going to present it to their board. Their board is going to vote, and then they're going to tell all the communities, you have to do this. So for us, West Jordan, they're going to say, you have to save 5% this year. And that is what they're going to do in May. Their staff has already said this is what all the numbers are. They will take it to their board. And I will guess, I don't want to speak for them, but once they see the numbers, they will say that's what we need to save, is that 5%.
And so that's done a month at a time?
They do it in April, and they let us know in May. We would again take that to the council in May as well and let them know, and they would follow suit with what they're doing.
What about June, July, and August?
That would affect May, June, July, and August. Now I say that they would actually decide in April, but if this were to get to a stage where it was 3 or 4, everyone will know. Because in February, we would all be talking about this. If you were up in Davis County right now, if you noticed, Davis County knew that they were going to be in essentially a phase 3 or 4 in March. And that's why they talked about you can't do outside watering. Their restrictions are what we would be facing if we were in a 3 or a 4. We're only in a 1. But it's from our water supplier that comes through, and they will let us know, and then we'll take it to council.
Commissioner Allen?
I appreciate the outlook on this. The timing is good. We're being respectful of Mother Nature and everything else that's coming on. I think you're very accurate in the amount of water use in summer versus winter. In my experience, it's typically 3, sometimes even 4 or more times during the summer. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate all the direction, and we're kind of on the heels of our governor declaring a state of emergency and drought. So it's great to have this on the forefront and run through. We've recently looked at a lot of city ordinances for amount of turf,
Thank you.
Those kinds of things on there. I think that's all a fantastic start and a good, so commendable to staff. General question, and I'm going to rat out a little bit because I don't want this to turn into, and I think this is something I've heard from city council and others, we don't want people tattling on one another, right? But I'm going to do that. Commercial businesses, in particular, I'm thinking Jordan Landing, because that's where I drive past. Sprinklers run consistently. Are they on a different type of alarm or alert status versus a resident?
For our customers, right, we have tier pricings. I think that is one of the best things that the city has done is done tier pricing. Every customer we leave up right now in if it were a 3 and a 4, that would hit Jordan Landing. We would go in and say, you will save this much. Here is your bill from last year. You will save this much, or this is your use. You need to save this much. Because we're only in a 1 and it's encouraged, we will let them use the water that they need, that they feel they personally need, but we will charge them for that. So when you're seeing them water every day, they are spending a lot of money doing that. And that's, for us, the best way that we can penalize people who don't want to conserve is at least make them pay for it. So, and really pay for it. So that's why the tiers, boy, when you get to that top tier, that's a lot of water, a lot of cost.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have a question more of a personal nature. Is an HOA classified as commercial for water usage, or is it classified as residential?
Right now, it's classified as residential, and we have them as a multifamily use. They don't. That's usually not a commercial use, an HOA.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up to a public hearing. If you'd like to speak on this item, please step forward, state your name. You'll be given 3 minutes. If you are online, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back up to the commissioners for more comment and or for motion. Commissioner Quinney?
I don't think we need to sit here on this one.
No.
Based on the information, findings, and requirements of approval set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for this application.
And
Commissioner Wynn?
I will second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, carries 6-0. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, can I ask you a quick question while we're still on the record before we adjourn?
Sure.
And forgive me, Duncan, I should know this by now, but going back to our first business item, since our applicant is still here, we cited some findings that we didn't agree with, but we didn't state anything specific about those findings. I'd like to have Commissioner Wynn and Commissioner Hatch just take 2 or 3 minutes just to kind of elaborate on those. Is that okay? Just so that he has some homework? Or are we too late on that?
I think it's appropriate, just unless the applicant has any objection to it. If he doesn't, I think it's. Okay.
Yeah, I think for a project of this scope, it'd be helpful to have some specific. I mean, he heard our general thoughts, but we had specific findings. I think he needs to know what those.
So would you like to suspend?
And what? Yes, and that's exactly what I was going to recommend. If you make, I think the chair was just about to recommend that you make a motion to suspend the rules and then add maybe at the end some of those findings to be attached with the motion.
Yeah, so I would move that we suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Commissioners, since the rules are suspended, it just helps me be responsive to what you're looking for. That's all. So I appreciate this.
Okay, thank you.
I see we start with Commissioner Wynn, followed by Commissioner Hatch. Just 2 or 3 minutes is all I think we need.
Yeah, because especially whenever you are mentioning specific findings, the most helpful thing is if you can identify specific documents, facts, or information, especially that was either in the staff report or that came up during the public hearing or that was discussed. And then basically you're saying these facts, these bits of information is what you're basing your negative recommendation on, that finding A and C and D and so forth. So specific facts, evidence, information.
So I didn't write down exact locations in the findings, but in finding A, there's a line that says, quote, "No negative impact will be created to the neighborhood or city because of the proposed change." Actually, I did note that's in goal 2. No negative impact. We heard lots of people from the community say that this did have a negative impact on them. So that's why I felt like finding A was not met. Finding C says that the proposal has to be compatible with other land uses in the vicinity. And once again, I think we heard the community say that this was not compatible with other land uses in the vicinity. I had, this is still in finding C. For me, this didn't automatically make finding C a negative, but it raises a question for me. There's a finding that says that the number of very high density units, actually, I'm wording that wrong. I'll skip over that one since it wasn't part of my It's part of my thought process, but I didn't find it contrary to the finding. On finding D, says that the proposal must have, quote, an overall and must be an overall improvement to the neighborhood. And to me, again, the citizens spoke plainly about that they did not consider it an improvement to the neighborhood. So those were my more specific details.
So it sounds like a lot of what you're indicating, Commissioner Wynn, is some of the public hearing comments from.
Yes.
Okay.
That's reflecting public comments, but it's also reflecting my personal feelings, my personal judgment, I should say.
Okay, Commissioner Hatch.
Thank you. My biggest finding was finding E, that the proposed amendment will not adversely impact the neighborhood and community, and as a whole by significantly altering acceptable land uses, infrastructure, expensive public infrastructure improvements, etc. It's been proven in those findings that there isn't enough water, or if there is, we have to build infrastructure to get the water to this site. As far as traffic patterns and land use patterns, the increase to high density, I think, will increase the traffic. Road infrastructure is not built yet. I think once we see what the area is going to look like, we can figure out what type of housing. I completely agree this is the appropriate place for high density or very high density. I would just like to see how it's going to be built up around that before we move forward with an agreement. I had misstated earlier that I didn't agree with finding B. I do agree with their negative recommendation on finding B, so you can amend that. The rest of it, I just didn't feel like it was fleshed out enough to give us what we were really looking for. As far as finding D, an overall improvement to the adopted general land use, I mean, that's a hard question to answer because in some ways our land use map is outdated and it needs to be improved. But is this the right approach? And I don't agree that this is the right approach. So based on finding D, I feel like it's 50% correct. It does need to be improved, but I don't know if this is the right approach. And those are my reasonings.
I'd like to comment.
Okay, Commissioner Wynn.
Back on Trish's comments on finding E. I guess I would ask for these staff to comment more on this because my understanding is that streets and utilities and all of that stuff is not within our purview at the moment.
Yeah, but how the land use map affects it is. That's within your purview. And I think commissioners, that you've given Mr. Southworth enough information that he can, because he needs to talk to the city council at this point about and I believe that you've justified your motion. So.
Yeah, that satisfies me. Thank you.
Permission to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.